This happened about 3 years ago. I worked at an underground go-karting area. I worked as an controller, so I sold tickets and controlled the races, meaning I stopped and started races. It was one of the busiest Saturday nights. I'm rushing around with tickets and controlling races. My marshals are running around and trying to make sure the races run smoothly. This one family comes in and bought 2 tickets. The father and son wanting to race each other. When it came to their turn, the father says he wanted that cart and pointed at the one in the island. The cart in the island is black with some nice fire patterns on it. It really did look awesome, but here's the catch, it's just a prop with no engine. I told the father this, but he insisted on that cart. I thought he was maybe a little hard of hearing or it was too noisy for him, so I repeated myself. He called me a liar and called the marshal a liar. We went back and forth with this for about 10 minutes. The marshal pulled me aside and whispered into my ears, and the more he spoke the more I smiled. We went back to the father and agreed on giving him the cart. We asked if he wanted his wife to video record the race and he agreed readily. I told them the basic rules and also told them that I will only stop the race if there is a real emergency. Just before the race started, my boss walked into the control room and I explained everything to him. He smiled and took a chair out for himself to watch the show. The lights turn green, the wife starts recording, the son is off and the father was still where he is. He went off at us and telling us that we have cost him the race, etc. etc. We get him into another cart, but by then his son has done 2 laps. After the race, the father demanded that he speaks to my manager, and to his luck my boss is standing next to. My boss's words, "You got what you asked for, so I suggest you leave or we call security." The father leaves and his wife had tears in her eyes from laughter. The son apparently won $100. Remember, this happened in front of 200 plus customers. This is the story of how I ended up helping a small restaurant owner set up his new laptop. The characters involved are me, owner, the owner of a small restaurant. So one day I was working at home because I had to pick up a package at the post office. I decided to go around lunchtime so I can go pick up some takeout on the way back. This way I wouldn't have to cook, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Walking into a small restaurant, I noticed that it was quite empty. Splendid, that meant I wouldn't have to wait and could be on my way in no time. As I was walking up to the counter ready to order my food, the owner from behind the counter hinted at me. "Owner, you're young, you must be good with computers, right?" Me working in IT for a sizable company, not wanting to get myself in a buttload of unpaid work, I guess I know how to use one. "Owner, I just got this new laptop and apparently you have to set it up to use it. I don't know much about computers, I just have to get it up and running so I can do some accounting stuff for my restaurant." This was already in the Windows 10 times, so setting up the computer should be an easy task. Me, you just have to read the instructions and click a few buttons, it's no big deal. I'm sure you can manage. "Owner, I really don't know much about computers, could you not take a few moments to set it up?" Me being a nice guy, I agreed. I am walked over to the table escorted by owner bringing the food I had managed to order by this time. A few moments later owner brings his laptop from the back office and opens it up. As usual, the setup screen shows and we are greeted by Cortana screaming at us in a volume that also notified the construction workers outside to what was going on inside. After the mandatory butchering of Cortana, I walked owner through the process and advised him to disable all tracking options, etc. A quick 15 minutes or so later I had finished my food and the laptop was set up. Owner thanked me and offered the meal on the house. In the end I probably saved owner a few bucks because he would probably have gotten someone to set it up for him, and I got a free meal out of it, a classic win-win. When I was in college there was this girl who would constantly steal things out of my dorm. She would take my clothes, she would take my food. At the end of the year she ended up returning a shampoo and conditioner bottle to me, because she had just come in and taking them at some point during the year. She definitely stole my "To Write Love on Her Arms" hoodie, which I'm still mad about. 11 years later. Anyway. A couple of my friends in the dorm and I were hanging out, and we had ordered wings. And I like spicy food. And Gabby also likes spicy food. So we ordered like the hottest wings they had and then like the second hottest wings. The second hottest ones were like really good, but the hottest ones were just like too much for both of us. So I, being petty idiot that I am, decided to set the super hot wings closest to the door into the dorm, knowing that Sarah would come in and just take one without asking. Not even 2 minutes later she walks in, doesn't say hello to anybody, grabs a wing, turns to walk out and takes a bite. You could literally hear her screaming in pain from the hallway. She hates spicy food. And if she had asked, I would have told her that they were too spicy for her. But I knew she wouldn't ask, woman shrugging. My friend is a Kevin. Plain and simple. He is consistently amazing me at how completely stupid he is. This is his most recent blunder, and I still cannot stop thinking about it, so let's go. Me, Kevin, and a few of my friends decided to eat at KFC one day, because we all like fried chicken. In my state, indoor eating is allowed, so we ordered and sat down. You see, Kevin also doesn't seem to understand how viruses work, because once our food was ready, he pulled out a bottle of hand sanitizer. I thought, okay, he is just cleaning his hands before he eats, no big deal. But this boy begins pouring the sanitizer into his food. He didn't just drop a little bit, he poured out the entire bottle. It was just swimming in hand sanitizer. We all just stared at Kevin, not saying a word for a solid minute, trying to process what this man had just done. We all burst out laughing, and Kevin said, and I quote, "I gotta keep myself healthy. Look, I'm all for staying safe, but you are doing the complete opposite of what he was supposed to." I made sure he didn't take a single bite of that food, or he probably could have died. But you want to know the best part? You want to know where he got that idea from? Somebody jokingly told him over Xbox Live that if you put hand sanitizer in your food, that the sanitizer would fight the virus, and Kevin took his word as gospel. Moral of the story, don't eat hand sanitizer, and don't believe anything you hear over Xbox Live. Not sure if this would count or not, but I've seen other wholesome encounter stories on here before, so I'll give it a go. I was at Kroger yesterday in the frozen breakfast food aisle trying to decide on what to get when I heard "excuse me" behind me. I can tell I've heard a lot of these types of stories since I immediately thought I'm wearing a purple t-shirt and jean capris. I hope she doesn't think I'm an employee. And wondered what was going to come next. I turned around to see a lady holding her phone and looking from phone to shelves to me. "Do you happen to know where these are?" she asked while pointing to her phone. "The app says they're supposed to be on this aisle, but I can't find them." I looked at her phone and saw a picture of Hot Pockets. I apologized and told her that I have never bought them before, so had no idea where they might be, but suggested that she look in the next aisle that had the frozen dinner/frozen pizza. Thankfully, she didn't blow up at me or anything like that. Instead, she asked, "Why is it seems that when you're shopping and you need help, there aren't any employees around to help you? However, when you know what you want and where it is, there are employees everywhere." After exchanging some laughs at the truth in that statement, I wished her luck and we parted ways. I hope she found what she was looking for. So I work at an art supply store. The other day I was answering a phone call and it was man asking about what type of markers we have and what the price is. Alright, no problem, pretty straightforward. He then asks if we have every single color. I have no idea if we do, but I know we have a good majority of them and I tell him as such. He then proceeds to ask if I can send him a picture of all that we have. Me not knowing what I should do, I ask a manager if there is any way to even do that and I was told no. I tell the customer that unfortunately there's no way to send pictures from the store. He takes a deep long sigh and tells me I'm really inconveniencing him. I apologize and ask if he has a specific color I could check to make sure we have it. He just repeats I'm inconveniencing him and that it's ridiculous because people text photos to each other all day long and you can't? Well, sorry sir, no, we don't have any way to send pictures from the store. He then asks me to use my own phone to do this for him. I told him I wouldn't feel comfortable doing this as I don't want to give my phone number out to strangers. Which he responded with by cussing me out and hanging up. Cherry on the cake, he was the second person to cuss me out that day. Oh, the joys of retail. I'm a courtroom assistant in a Southeast Asian country. I'd rather not get much further than that on identifying information. We do both security and practical assistance like moving displays, escorting juries, and some ceremonial stuff as well. This was the sentencing of an evil flip on several high crime offenses, similar to what a capital offense may be in America. Here high crime is the level above criminal offense, or felony for the rest of the world. He stalked, kidnapped, raped, and murdered a locally famous and growing pop artist who was pregnant. He was charged with stalking, high crime kidnapping, high crime rape, high crime murder, high crime fetal homicide, and a bunch of other stuff. Evil Flip, as he will be referred to from here on out, was on suicide precautions as he made threats against his own life in prison, so he was in spiffy paper clothes. We were well into victim impact statements. The victim had a large family and there were something like 35 individuals addressing the court. We're something like 28 statements into it. Next up was Granddad. These are always really emotional. Families are always really upset for good reason, but this 80-plus-old guy is the worst I can remember. He was crying, breathing heavily, shaking, the entire sentencing. He was called to make his statement, starts walking up, about past the counsel table. He then turns, tackles the attorneys and evil flip. He didn't get much in on the evil flip, maybe a kick and 2 punches before 15 of us pile up on him. He was taken into custody, and it quickly became apparent that evil flip got what was coming. Evil flip is screaming and gagging for about 20 seconds, then he starts convulsing, came back in about 2 minutes choking/gagging, really bad. We put him on his side and get an ambulance on the way. The rest of the gallery was evacuated and court went into recess. By time the ambulance arrives he's not breathing, only twitching and has no pulse. They do CPR, take him out to the hospital. He was revived and died later that day. Coroner's report said his brainstem was damaged, his skull was broken, and brain herniated through break in his skull. The granddad was interviewed by national police who have jurisdiction of courts. He said that he'd been planning that for days, he felt no remorse, said if he had time he would have killed the attorneys too. It also came out that the granddad was in my country's mob back in the day, had 40 years in prison prior for drowning someone in petrol and lighting their corpse on fire. He was suspected but not confirmed to be involved in several other high-profile murders. He was charged with murder, conspiracy, contempt of court, and 2x simple battery for the attorneys. He was found not guilty of everything except contempt of court, to which he was originally sentenced to 4 years but it was reduced to terminal probation with home confinement due to his health. This takes place on the 4th of July, statistically the most dangerous time for Kevin shenanigans. Kevin was at home, enjoying the July 4th weekend with his friend Kevin 2. Kevin and Kevin 2 have many fun interactions with local authorities but this one would be the craziest. Kevin and Kevin 2 had purchased some fireworks to enjoy the holiday with, but Kevin 2 really wanted to see what they looked like before going outside, so he lit a whole box of fireworks and placed them on Kevin's couch. The fireworks started going off and exploding in the room, catching the couch, and nearby items on fire. Kevin rushed to the living room to see what the commotion was, only to notice the conflagration where his couch once was. Thankfully Kevin lives in an apartment complex with fire suppression systems in it, saving the rest of the complex from damage, so Kevin and Kevin 2 thought. The police, fire, and property management company show up and assess the damage. It turns out all Kevin's neighbors had their sprinklers go off as well because of the fire, causing thousands of dollars in damage, and displacing numerous families, including Kevin. Kevin 2 is now awaiting sentencing for property damage, and Kevin still can't go back home. Some poor guests had a rough time today. When they arrived their room was not ready and they had to wait for over an hour. Once their room was ready they called the front desk within minutes saying they found a gun in their room. I went into the room and found a sawed-off shotgun lying under their mattress. This was no professionally made gun but some kind of sketchy homemade shotgun. It did not even have a trigger guard. I could not figure out how to unload it so I left it be and called the police and they were as baffled as I was. Ended up with 3 squad cars and 6 officers all standing outside fussing over a single gun. This happened yesterday and this is a throwaway account. I saw a young woman on the train whom I thought was cute. I don't know how to safely approach people with the COVID situation and I was getting off at the next stop so I made a note telling her I thought she was cute with my number and airdropped it to the name that came up when she took out her phone. She looked at me and smiled, I think, harder to tell with masks, and texted me as I was walking through the station saying that she thought I was cute too. I was excited. Then she asked me how old I was and my heart sank, thinking oh no she's 19 or 20 or something, younger than I thought. I told her my age, 29. She then revealed that she's 15. I was horrified and before I could finish my text of I'm so sorry, I thought you were an adult, it's hard to tell with the mask, I'm going to block your number now. She said I love her glass as though we're a major DILF and I just about threw up, then collected myself and gave her a little spiel about please don't say things like that to grown men, made it clear I'm not victim blaming, most won't but there are some who will act on that and that's a terrifying thought. Anyway I think I handled it decently well but that was brutal and I still feel so embarrassed. TL, Doctor I hit on someone who turned out to be 15, she called me a DILF, and I wanted to melt into the ground never to be seen again. Lurker, occasionally comments but this is my first time posting. To set the scene, I work for a large UK energy company and have done for 12.5 years. We open Monday to Saturday for all customer service and on a Sunday for customers who have a loss of supply. However, We do get some strange calls from customers who chance their arm to see who's in and sound off at someone new. This customer had moved into a property around 4 years ago, and as part of his tenancy agreement, he was responsible for the electricity and gas. He didn't feel he was supposed to and believed his landlord should be paying the bills. The complaint has reached deadlock where we tell the customer we can no longer help and to go to the regulator. The customer had done this already, but he still wanted to call us on a Sunday. This person decided to call us and was speaking to one of my staff working at home, demanding a manager. Callback arranged as I was in the office, blah blah. After looking into the account, I looked forward to speaking to this customer and opened the call in the same way to confirm data security and to advise calls are recorded for training, etc. See, I wanted to say that I'm unhappy with how your company has dealt with me. Sorry about that. But I can see we have explored everything we can with you and your complaint is now deadlocked. See, is that how you deal with me? I am not supposed to pay this bill. I can see what we've asked of you before, but at this time, I have to refer you to the Ombudsman in relation to your complaint. See, can you please add this to the complaint? I'm calling you as the stress of dealing with your company has killed me. Killed you? But how am I speaking to you today? See, your company has killed me and I want you to note it down. Just to make it clear to you, I would suggest that you give that opinion to the Ombudsman and they can add it to their case file. I won't be adding that to our records here. See, what is your name? Customer Classic. It's careful__garden. See, good, I will take them. You didn't take me seriously that your company killed me. No problem. Please contact the Ombudsman tomorrow and they'll take that information from you. See, so you won't speak to me anymore today? No, there is nothing I can do. I wish you good luck in speaking to the Ombudsman. Click. Never thought I'd get to speak to a corpse, and despite being made redundant with my final day this Friday, customers continue to surprise me. Edit, spelling. I can hear this guy trying to get in the locked door. 5 minutes ago on the phone I told him to call me when he gets in so I can let him in the locked door with a button I press behind the desk. I've been waiting for a few awkward minutes now. I'm a very patient person, but this guy was rude on the phone and I have a headache to boot. Tonight I'm not rewarding stupid behavior. Mean? Maybe. Are there signs posted? Yes. I finally go out to the front desk and take a look at the person struggling behind the door. His shorts are actually halfway down his legs. I can see his thighs and I'm not a fan. I'm sitting there watching him struggle as I'm trying to let him in by pressing the button. But he's not looking up. He's not letting me wave him in and indicate he can come in. He's just staring at the door. Waiting. Finally he picks up the phone, still not looking up, and I answer and he hangs up before I can tell him it's unlocked. He's still waiting. I'm too lazy to go around. It is a standstill. I call out, "Yo bro." He looks up. Finally. I wave him in and he comes to check in. He then tells me he left his ID in the car. He'll be back. I'll be waiting. A few years back I had something funny happen at Target, that I know you guys will like. I don't wear a uniform at my job, and get to wear pretty much anything I want to work, unless it's blue jeans. Usually I wear some kind of tan or brown pants. I have always been fond of polo shirts and happen to own 2 red polo shirts, one of which I wore to work on this day. After clocking out I made my way to Target to buy God knows what. I can't quite remember what I needed, but I was walking through the furniture department where they had a black leather couch on ground level that you could sit on. So here I was, in Target, wearing a red polo shirt, and tan pants. Some lady asked me for help picking out furniture, and I told her, "Oh sorry, I don't work here." She either didn't hear me, or thought I was full of SH because I was wearing what was basically a Target uniform, and proceeded to tell me she was looking for a small couch. Seeing the opportunity to have a little fun I said, "Oh, well we have this couch on display right now," and gestured to the little black couch. Now, I am not a salesman, but I had this little old black lady reclining on this little black leather couch and telling me how she needs a little coffee table for her wine. She was totally freaking sold on this thing and asked me to bring it up to the front so she could buy it. I stopped the act and said basically, "Well I don't work here, but I'm glad I could help you pick a couch." And just like walked off. She didn't say a word. LOL. The whole sales experience took about 5 minutes, and God, it is one of the funniest things to ever happen to me. Hope it gives you guys a laugh too. Brian Michael Foguth was 23 and working at his local Duke and Duchess service station at the intersection of Route 43 and Interstate 76 when he was murdered during a robbery in 1994. The lack of evidence in the case makes it unlikely it will be solved. The murder. Brian had just started working there and had swapped shifts with an ill co-worker on the night of November 28. His shift had been uneventful until 2:02 a.m. when a masked individual stepped into the store with a handgun drawn and marched Brian into the back office. It was assumed that during this time the thief was trying to locate a safe or strong box, but finding none they then marched Brian back out to the cash register, which he proceeded to empty while the thief remained crouched behind the counter. During this time, while putting cash into a bag, Brian triggered the silent alarm. At 2:04 a.m. a customer had arrived at the pumps to fill their car. They were unaware of what was unfolding in the shop. The lifting of the pump handle triggered a notification alarm in the shop to alert staff someone was filling their vehicle. The robber seemed to think that it was an alarm that Brian had triggered and a fight began. Brian struck the robber in the face during this and they stumbled back into the back room as the struggle continued. The robber then at some point during this struggle got the upper hand and shot Brian once in the back of the head. The investigation. The customer outside had stepped inside the store and located Brian dead in a back room by the time the police arrived. He was briefly detained until reviewing the security tape showed he wasn't involved. Incredibly, he hadn't seen or heard anything despite the robbery and murder happening while he was filling his car. The police found that the killer had bled after being struck by Brian and had left their blood behind at the scene. This has never been linked through DNA to any other crime. The weapon used was described as a Beretta-style handgun, though no ballistics match has ever been made with any other crime. The police identified the suspect as a 5 feet 9 inches white male aged between 18 and 30 at the time the crime took place. They may have had a distinctive hump on their back or long hair tied back in a ponytail and tucked under their clothes. Conclusion. Brian's mother later sued the company that owned the service station for failing to protect her son. It seems unlikely this crime could be solved without a DNA match to the suspect, and after so much time has passed, a conviction of any suspect would prove difficult without it. What is your opinion on this case? Unsolved Mysteries link. Well, the one thing I have always waited for finally happened today. I've never been told to do this by my company, but I feel it is common sense. I work tech support for a local ISP. Call comes in. Customer is angry, says internet is not working. I pulled the account up, and can see from the activities there is already a history. She tells me that she has been told numerous times that the internet is not working in her back bedroom because her Wi-Fi signal does not reach that far, and she needs to purchase a range extender. I verify this with the activities on the account. However, it looks like we also had a tech go to her house and check things, who determined the cheap wireless chip in her TVs is the problem, and verified everything else is working. Based on this, and the info she gives me, I come to the same conclusion. She gets livid. She starts yelling, and threatening to cancel. I apologize, and tell her if she wishes to cancel, she can call on Monday when customer service is here. She tells me she is coming into the office, and not leaving until a manager speaks to her. Our offices are currently closed due to a global pandemic, so good luck with that. She asks for the supervisor, and I smile and let her know I am the night shift supervisor. She says she hardly believes that, and hangs up. The real magic happens after the call. We get a chat request, and it is her threatening legal action. I reiterated the 3 different options we gave her, all of which she refused, and then let her know that due to legal action being threatened, she will have to go through upper management with any further contact. She keeps messaging in, but her chats are being ignored. My boyfriend and I both currently work in different restaurants. I work as a server, and he works as a bar manager. Yesterday, he came home from work and was fairly distant and quiet. I could tell his mind was elsewhere. So, I prodded a little bit over the course of a few hours, as I was concerned for him. Well, when he opened up, I was shocked. Yesterday, a family of 5 walked into his restaurant, and the father wasn't wearing a mask. Currently, his restaurant requires that everyone wears a mask while entering the building, walking around the building, working, or leaving the building. And they hold to it. So, a young teenage hostess asked the father if he had a mask. They have masks to provide to guests should they not have one. The mother answered, "Oh, he doesn't wear a mask," and chuckled. The father then lifted his shirt, revealing a gun on his hip, and stated, "When you have one of these, you don't need a mask." The hostess made a quick and smart decision. She de-escalated the situation and sat the family at a table closest to the door. She then immediately informed my boyfriend and the front-of-house manager of what happened. Both managers assessed the situation, and decided to call the police. When the police showed up, they escorted the father to the parking lot. A few minutes later, the father re-entered the building, spoke with his family quietly, and they left the restaurant. Can you imagine being a teenager making minimum wage, being threatened by a grown man with a gun, over a mask being required on private property? He literally threatened a teenager with a gun in order to gain access to private property, all because he didn't want to comply with restaurants' mask requirements, which are in line with current CDC recommendations and government mandates. The hostess must be terrified to go back to work. I'm terrified to go back to work at my restaurant. My boyfriend worries if the father will retaliate, and if others will act as the father did. I've rarely worried for my safety at work or the safety of others, but, flip this guy for making so many people so fearful just to go to work, pay their bills, and live their lives. So this lady came in with her husband last week complaining that the bank allowed fraud to happen on her account. It was unfortunate, and I was ready to help her, but her husband kept asking how the bank can let fraud happen without stopping it. I think about these things because I'm a lawyer, he says. In my mind I'm thinking whoop-de-doo for you, this isn't a legal matter though. The two of them are bickering a lot and frankly being quite annoying, so I get them in track and help the lady do everything that she needs for now, and I give her the fraud department number so she can make a claim on her own time. They thank me and leave. A week later, she comes in alone. She says that the fraud department was extremely rude and unhelpful, mostly because her lawyer called on her behalf and they refused to deal with him since he had no right to the accounts. Then I suddenly realize that she isn't married, and she has a bum lawyer who doesn't even know how to introduce himself. I called fraud for her and on the phone the agent told me that the record shows that her lawyer got into a yelling match with another agent, because the bank has nothing to prove that he is who he says he is. So I fixed the account blocks, since the kerfuffle resulted in all of her accounts frozen, and I processed her claim myself. She left satisfied. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee, cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. Idiot bro believes that you can cure almost anything with the right kind of vinegar. As a teen, he went to his favorite source for medical knowledge, some famous explorer's journal. Yes, I realize that the journal of some guy who explored America long before modern medical care is an unusual choice for up-to-date medical knowledge. But this is idiot bro, who believes that all modern things are bad, and all the old ways are automatically better. He thought he was coming down with something. So he looked up this dead explorer guy's journal to find out how to get over the bug. This explorer guy said to drink a cup, 8 ounces, of vinegar, and you will feel better. What the Explorer Guy's journal did not say is that vinegar is an emetic and it will make you barf and barf and barf. My dad believed in letting us make our own dumb mistakes, so he watched as Idiot Bro carefully measured out 8 ounces of vinegar. Then Dad asked what Idiot Bro was going to do with the vinegar. Idiot Bro explained that he was going to fix his bug by drinking the vinegar. My dad knew that all Idiot Bro was going to be doing for the night was puking. Dad just let him go do it, after saying, that might not be the smartest thing to do. Man, if I still had a soul this would probably be less funny to me and more disheartening. But here we are, folks. At my property we have 2 different regular guests who dislike each other and I find it incredibly amusing, if moderately irritating to hear about/deal with. They don't know each other except that they both tend to hang around the desk and talk to the FDAs for extended periods of time, especially the ladies. And they don't openly dislike each other, but you will often hear one complain about the other, or refer to them with one of their favorite nicknames. Haven't seen Lurch around this weekend. I was going to stop and say hi earlier, but I saw that your shadow was hanging around again. The thing is, it seems the biggest issue they both have with the other is that they are clearly creeping on the front desk. They get protective of one girl in particular and complain about how the other guy was bugging her all night last night and they were trying to save her and keep her company so she wasn't stuck alone with the guy. The lack of self-awareness is unreal, and I have to laugh to myself whenever they try to talk to me like they get it about that other guy's behavior. Truthfully, they're both equally annoying, and I know 100% that girl would rather just do her rounds and shift duties in peace. There's a lot of cleaning to do these days. I get it, you're on the road a lot, you want to talk to someone. FDAs are generally going to listen with a smile. But god darn, I do have a job to do, and it's not to entertain you for an hour plus every Saturday night while you make bad jokes and lightly veiled innuendo. This actually happened yesterday, but I only thought to put it here today. Just wanted to get that out there. I work at a pool as a lifeguard for my summer job, which is probably the only reason I'm still alive, and at the entrance of the pool there's a little building you have to go through to get to the pool. Inside there is a little room where the lifeguards sit when they're not in the chairs. You're allowed to eat/drink/read or whatever you want in your downtime, so I start to eat my lunch. There are 2 other lifeguards in the office with me as I'm eating my lunch. We get pretty bored in the office, so we're always looking for stuff to do. I told the other guards that I could drink all my Gatorade in under 10 seconds. They said yes and they got a timer ready. I start to chug the Gatorade as fast as possible, but this is where shit hits the fan. I have a tendency to laugh pretty easily, usually at the smallest things. One of the lifeguards starts clapping and saying chug, chug, chug. I try not to laugh, but it comes out anyway. A whole bunch of Gatorade goes into my windpipe and I start to cough. I spit out Gatorade all over the floor and make my way to the trash can. I also have a pretty strong gag reflex, so after a few seconds I throw up into the trash can. I thought I would be fine after this, but after it all comes out, I couldn't breathe. I try to burp, which usually helps when you get water/liquid in your windpipe, but nothing happens. Then I realize, I'm choking on my vomit. I signal to the other guards, who were laughing because they had no clue what was actually happening. They asked if I could breathe, and after realizing I couldn't, they got ready to do the Heimlich. One of the guards got behind me and got into position while the other was getting ready to call 911. She gives me 2 chest pumps, and then, a chunk of vomit came flying out. I let out a giant belch and start to be able to breathe. After a few minutes, I was able to breathe well enough and spent the next 10 minutes trying to clear out my throat and nose. I'm so glad that I'm alive and breathing right now thanks to my co-worker. She quite literally saved my life. I'm never going to drink red Gatorade again, it's probably for the best. DL, doctor, I tried to chug Gatorade, ended up choking on my own vomit. Co-worker had to give me the Heimlich. Of course the evilness of this plan depends on which side you're on with the whole mask debate. You're either on the logical, evil, side, or you're on the wrong side. So here's how it goes. Whenever I'm out in public and come across a filthy no-masker, which is way too dang often, I try to get as close as I comfortably can to the person, while staying socially distanced of course, and then I start coughing like the Rona has sunken its deadly claws deep into my respiratory system. You'd be surprised by how well this works. I've had people use their shirts to cover their faces and people with their noses uncovered fixing their masks. The best part is, they can't see my guilty smile whenever it works, smiley face. These people need to regret their bad decisions. If obvious logic isn't going to work on them, then we must stoop to psychological warfare. Edit, grammar is hard. Some finer points to add since similar posts have caused others to jump to the wrong conclusions. I'm not getting into the faces of unmasked strangers and blasting them with cooties. I'm simply coughing in the vicinity. Nothing beyond some perfectly covered and socially distanced coughing. Edit 2, the debate has been settled guys. Every puff of air that leaves your mouth beyond breathing is truly an evil thing to do. Edit 3, okay, I'll modify my stance on this. But I'm still sticking to my evil plan. Yes, there are conditions out there that make wearing a mask inconvenient. But I'm sure they're not much worse than getting corona and dying. I can agree that it's unfair to purposely get in the vicinity of people and do this. But at the same time, shouldn't these conditions be making people more conscious of their surroundings and not wanting to be in the bubble of others? I could say that they shouldn't even be in situations where they should be wearing a mask, but I know that's not possible in all parts of the world. So, modified evil plan. If a non-masker happens to encroach on my socially distanced bubble despite me doing what I can to stay safe and not spread germs, I might let out a cough 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 until they are exactly 6 feet away from me. If they happen to spend more time actually thinking about how their filthy non-masker behavior is affecting others, that's a plus too. Stay safe everyone, sick face. So this happened a couple of months ago and I still have no idea what the guy meant by what he said. Anyway, I was at a certain home improvement store where employees wear blue and red vests. I was standing in line at the self-checkout, holding a can of paint and minding my own business when a random guy walked up to me. Random guy: "Hey, where are the restrooms?" Me: I think they're somewhere over there." Gestures vaguely in the direction where I think they are. But I'm not really sure. Random guy: "What do you mean you're not sure?" At this point I realize that he probably thinks I'm an employee, which is ridiculous because I'm wearing a black anime shirt, sweatpants, and I look like I just rolled out of bed. Me: "I don't actually work here and I don't come here much, so I'm not sure." At that point he gives me a once-over, then says, "Oh, you just look like you work here," then walks off. Now I've been asked questions at stores a few times, so I'm not sure if I just have that retail look, if that's actually a thing, but I'm still a little confused why he thought I worked there. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me: "Okay, tell me exactly what happened." CLR: "Yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head." Me: "Okay, are you with her now?" CLR: "Well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here." Me: "Have you gone to check on her yet?" CLR: "No, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her." Me: "Can you please go check on the patient?" CLR: "Yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them." Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. TLDR at bottom, sorry for format, on mobile. I work at a Mexican restaurant and we serve salsa AMD chips for free when you dine in. You eat some while you wait, maybe get a refill or two while you're eating. For to-go orders, we give one small bag of chips and one small salsa. People always complain about how little they get, why don't they get a bag for each meal? I've tried to explain it to them but they either hang up, if they're on the phone, or they'll say horrible service and slam the door when they leave. Why can't they understand that they're paying for the food they get? We already give them a free bag of chips just as a little thank you. If you dine in, you get more chips and salsa because you pay more when you dine in. You buy drinks and leave a tip. For to-go orders, giving those chips is a complimentary thing. There has to be a limit, we can't just give away all of our chips and salsa for free. TLDR, people opt for extra chips and salsa and don't understand there has to be a limit on something that is free or we will lose money. Written on mobile, sorry if there are any typos. Happened just 30 minutes ago, I can't stop cringing from the thought of it. Not as bad as some other stories out here but here goes. You know those comedic scenes where a woman is waving at a man in the distance and someone in the way believes it to be at him? Yep, it happened to me, something I thought impossible of occurring. Me, being a lesser confident human being in past years have been trying gain the courage to approach a lady, and courage I did have. So imagine me at the beach with my cousin casually relaxing when suddenly I see a woman, alone, with sunglasses looking over my way, and all of a sudden she begins waving and making gestures to come here way. Of course, I initially think it is to someone else and figure it as such, so I mind my own business. However, 5 minutes go by and I see her waving once more, and again I figure it is meant for someone else and disregard it as such, and then again within the next 5 minutes, and at this point my thoughts begin to scramble with the possibility of it being for me. So I wave back. And still she waves and gives a motion to go in her direction, and so I do. I go over and it goes very, very south. I sit down in the sand with some distance to her and her towel, COVID blah blah blah, and all of a sudden what I guess is her BF finally arrives and comes up behind me, while she embarrassingly murmurs something in the lines of sorry, nothing intended, and the guy rolls up behind me and tells me to get up and go away. In my greatest personal shame I try explaining how sorry I am for the awkward inconvenience I had now caused. They say nothing more and seem to take everything extremely seriously, to which I do not know how to react except wish them a nice evening, all very awkwardly, and go away to my cousin who is laughing his ass off. So yep, it does happen, and I do not believe I will ever be able to speak or even think interacting to a random woman in the near future. Please help. TL, doctor made a woman and her partner really uncomfortable and expense of my own self-respect. I've had an interesting Saturday and wanted to share. Background: coworker booked a few days off, so I'm working 8 to 4 Saturday/Sunday to cover. My usual shifts are 4 to 12 and 12 to 8, so I've been awake since 10 p.m. yesterday, because my attempt at altering my sleep schedule failed. We have 4 people that work FT plus manager due to COVID. Shift started with handicap doors being broken because someone nearly ripped IT off its hinges and broke the hydraulics. 8 a.m., random guy came in, rifled through the trash and started drinking from mostly empty cans NC hadn't picked up yet. While I repeatedly demanded he leave, he stopped in the middle of the lobby to pick a beetle off the floor, ignoring me. Finally left after 5 minutes of I need to save this bug and checked in car windows as he left the property. 12 p.m., second shift person calls in. They're in hospital. Manager is out of town. Co-worker I'm covering isn't available. That leaves me and the Na to cover second shift. Na and I agree they'll come in at 10 p.m. to relieve me since I'm back at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Woohoo, 14-hour day. 12:30 p.m., we discover a DNR had gotten a family member to book a room for them. Left a sleeping child in room after our 11:30 checkout time. Finally got them out of the room around 1:30. 1 p.m., different random guy odds outside the lobby door. He's a regular late-night wanderer. Pool attendants found him and attempted to help. I called ambulance for him. Ambulance and fire truck show up because he had labored breathing and was unresponsive. Paramedics knew him by name and took him away. 2 p.m., car crash in front of hotel. 2 fire trucks block traffic while they clean up the mess. 7 p.m., coworker in hospital has an ice cap and donuts from popular Canadian coffee chain, delivered as an apology for us having to cover the shift. Now I'm sitting here counting the minutes until my Na shows up to relieve me and praying more crazy doesn't happen before then. Silver lining, there were no Karens today. So, this happened today, surprisingly. I was at the beach, having a good time, when suddenly, I felt seaweed on my feet. Well, my brother didn't know what seaweed felt like, so I decided to pick it up. Not a good idea. I saw this white, thin tendrils. I immediately dropped it and thought, oh shoot, that's not seaweed. Well, I immediately felt a burning sensation. The seaweed was a jellyfish. The jellyfish had wrapped its tentacles around my legs and stung me. I ran back to shore, stabbing pain going through my legs. My mom immediately looked up jellyfish stings and, yes, I had been stung. I am currently in bed, talking to my grandparents, and writing this. I just put vinegar on it and it hurts like I have been stung all over again. TL doctor, picked up seaweed, turned out it was a jellyfish. Edit, the jellyfish that stung me was a Chesapeake Bay sea nettle. Hi everyone. Obligatory long-time reader, first-time poster and on mobile. I have a natural tendency to get UTIs. I get them twice a month at the most, and once every other month at the least. I've been to all kinds of urologists, had all sorts of investigative imaging and a surgery to figure out why, but nothing was ever determined as the culprit. I suppose it's my cross to bear. This morning I woke up with that very familiar pain of an infection and called up my doctor for another round of antibiotics. Now when I say antibiotics, these things are huge and potent. I typically try to let my body fight it off and just sit in pain all day, but this weekend was my 8-year wedding anniversary and my husband and I had planned a trip that involved a lot of walking around and 8 hours of driving round trip. I took my antibiotics and hung in there whilst chugging my cranberry juice, and about halfway down to the tourist spot, the pain went away and I forgot I was even on antibiotics. When we got there, it was hot, like 95, and humid hot with no clouds in the sky. I'm a fair-skinned lady already, but it seemed shady enough until we were touring the famous gardens. It was at that time my skin started to hurt. We walked the grounds for 3 hours, and when we got to the gift shop, I noticed that I was incredibly red. It was at that point I remembered that the instructions on the bottle says to avoid direct sunlight. DL, doctor, I, a pale white woman, took antibiotics that say avoid direct sunlight, then proceeded to tour a garden for 3 hours on a hot summer day without any sunscreen. I work at a nice neighborhood restaurant. It's a small independent place, with many regulars and a lot more randos. Being in a medium-sized town that's 30 minutes outside of a large city, we get a lot of people that want to feel like they're in the city without actually going to the city. We serve French food and French fusion, usually with southern takes on French dishes. It's not fine dining, but it's about a step or two below fine dining. My first table tonight was a couple that had never been in before, and they were way dressed up. The guy was in a nice suit and the woman in a nice dress. The host told them that they had to wear a mask anytime they weren't at their table, and gave them disposable masks. Immediately they complained and refused to put the masks on, so he promptly led them to their table to not cause commotion. Kinda his fault for not doubling down on the masks, but that's irrelevant. I took them water glasses and a bottle, and asked if they would like drinks. The usual routine. They were incredibly standoffish, and I took the nonverbal cues and gave them their space. No problem, it happens a lot. Every time I approached the table, they were visibly agitated that I had interrupted them. They skip drinks and appetizers and go straight to entrees. After their entrees are done, I ask if they would like dessert or more water, and they decline and ask for the check. After they pay, they tell me, "Our water glasses stayed empty for about 10 minutes, just so you know. Also, we expected to come out for a nice dinner, but the service here is not good. We are overdressed, and you should pay more attention." Also, they have a bottle of water on their table to refill their glasses, and given the pandemic, we are not supposed to constantly fill their water glasses. Under normal circumstances we would, but right now it is a health hazard. They then said the same thing to the manager, again referencing that they feel overdressed compared to everyone, including the manager. The tip was still 20%, so I'm certainly not complaining about that. But they were rude, complained about literally everything except the food, and kept insisting that the fact that they were overdressed caused them to have a bad experience, as well as me not hovering over their table, which again, they clearly gave nonverbal cues that they didn't want me to do that. I don't claim to be the best server, but I'm darn good at my job, and do not appreciate this sort of behavior. DL doctor, a couple complained that because they were overdressed, and because I didn't fill their water glasses every 2 minutes, they had a bad experience. That non-confrontational experience happened a few years ago. I visited the Deutsche Museum in München, Munich with a female friend. This museum is a large, maybe the largest, technical museum and has an incredibly diverse range of topics. As my friend was very interested in everything and I have a broad knowledge of technology, partly learned by visiting this museum many times, I explained a lot of exhibits as detailed as I could. The life-size cut of a modern airplane turbine prompted me to explain every detail, and that took approx 20 minutes. I even used my laser pointer to highlight things. At the end of my explanations I turned around and saw approx 50 people standing behind us and listening intensely. We started walking to the next exhibit and all the people followed us. I had to tell them, "Sorry, I don't work here, this is not a public tour." Smile. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones. Lol. Robin Pettinato, 14, went missing in Whitefish, Montana on July 5, 1975. She was last seen walking on West 2nd Street. She was walking to a softball game nearby. Robin was wearing a tan-patterned halter top, cut of jean shorts, and had no shoes on. She left her purse at home. Since that day, there has been no activity on her social security number. It is not believed that Robin ran away. She wasn't having problems at home and her diary gave no implications as to where she had gone. She had a boyfriend at the time of her disappearance. He was questioned by authorities and passed a polygraph test. He is not considered a suspect by authorities. Highways 93 and 2 run near or through Whitefish. It is also close to Glacier Park International Airport and an Amtrak station. Pat Walsh, a retired sergeant who worked on the case, theorized that there is a connection between Robin's disappearance and the disappearance of Nancy Kirkpatrick. This connection has never been proven. Robin's parents are deceased, but her brothers and sister are still looking for her. If you have any information regarding Robin's whereabouts, please contact the Whitefish Police Department at 406-863-2320 or the Flathead County Sheriff's Office at 406-758-5610. Sources: I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. 1971, a long, long time ago. Many details have been lost during the years I tried to forget. Conversations are not word-for-word accurate, but basically correct. In Vietnam I was the squad leader, Sergeant E5, of a Duster, C. At the end of my deployment I reported early in the morning to the battery clerk to out-process. As he handed me my paperwork, he said something like, "Man, I wish I could have been out in the field where the action is, like you." At battalion headquarters, as he hands me my papers that clerk says something like, "Man, I wish I could have been up at the battery level, where the action is, like you." At I-Corp headquarters, as he hands me my papers that clerk says something like, "Man, I wish I could have been up at battalion, where the action is, like you." Unfortunately, I can't remember if something similar happened during final out processing, but I think so. I found it funny that everyone seemed to think that if they were just at the next lower, higher level they would be where the action is. Late that last night came peeing in a cup with someone watching, one observer for each urinal, seated directly over the urinal, just weird, and a strip search to make sure I wasn't taking anything home. We had to strip, leave the building naked, get searched, walk to a different building and put on a completely different uniform. As soon as we had dressed we were rushed to a waiting plane. The cheering was pretty loud as we lifted into the air. About 24 hours later we arrived in Washington state to protesters. The next day I'm home on a 30-day leave. For the next month, when I would run into someone from school, at some point they would usually say something like, "I haven't seen you for a while. Where have you been?" When I told them, Vietnam, they usually realized they had something important they needed to do. I was picking up wings from my favorite spot that's in a trendy/alternative area of town. There were a decent amount of people outside in line behind me and in outdoor restaurant seating across this one-way street. I was already a little uncomfortable because somehow a few hairs made it into my mask. I had just finished shopping and had to open a few doors and didn't have hand sanitizer, so I couldn't wipe them off. While waiting in line, they somehow migrated into my mouth. Such a terrible feeling. Once I finally got my order, I hustled to my car parked a few feet away to take the darn mask off. I tried spitting the hair out without any luck. I'm so anal about not touching my face or anything once my hands are dirty. So I figure, I'll get the hair off my tongue by licking my arm. In my own little world right there in front of my car, I licked my arm. The darn hair was still there, so I licked it a few more times and finally got the hair out. I smiled to myself for my genius. When I hear a man's deep raspy voice behind me go, "Ooh boy, I bet you tasted real good." I turn around to this guy who was relaxing on the bench across the street, watching the entire episode. I couldn't hold back laughing in embarrassment. And said the first thing that came to mind. "Yeah, extra salty, just how I like it." At that point, we must have caught everyone else's attention because I heard a bunch of giggling behind my car. I was so embarrassed, I jumped into my car and tried to get out quick, only to realize I started driving down the wrong direction of this one way. And had to pull an Austin Powers to turn around. To see this man on the bench wink at me and wave goodbye. TLDR, got hair in my mouth, tried to lick my arm to get it off, not realizing I was being observed. At my last job, and now in my current job, I would have these mandatory performance reviews that include my performance goals for the upcoming year. When I sign up for these, it's with the express purpose of preparing for a merit increase at the end of the period. This never happened in my last job because they were always making bad decisions that left them scrambling to make ends meet, much less try to give people pay raises. In my new job, of course, there's been an impact from COVID, so I was told there would be no merit increases this year because there's no money available. Okay, I get it, and it's fine because I wasn't eligible this time around anyway, but for next year, they're already saying no raises at the end of this year, but they still want us to do the performance reviews and goal setting. Of course you want your workforce to continue to improve and to meet the demands of the job, but I'm doing that. I just get a kind of minor issue with putting in the effort to do the performance review, but with no payoff from me in it. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who feels this way. In my last job, it was completely pointless because no one even cared, not the employees, the bosses, or the managers. It was just a box you had to check, but here, it's like you're supposed to be all chipper about it like it's going to mean something. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap, it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of you 11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Nancy Lynn Kirkpatrick, 16, was last seen on April 21, 1976. She was walking home from a neighbor's house in Columbia Falls, Montana. The day Nancy disappeared, she had just been returned to her family after running away. Nancy lived with her grandmother since her parents were divorced. She was a chronic runaway, and had been found and returned to her loved ones from places as far as Seattle and Los Angeles. She had an interest in hippie counterculture. There was an unconfirmed sighting of Nancy in Anchorage, Alaska in 1983, by one of her teachers. Nancy has distinctive burn scars on both her shoulders and a scar on her upper right arm. Because Nancy's case is similar to the disappearance of Robin Pettinato, who disappeared a year earlier and 10 miles away in Whitefish, it is theorized that there is a connection between the cases. This connection has never been proven. If you have any information regarding Nancy's whereabouts, please contact the Whitefish Police Department at 406-863-2320 or the Flathead County Sheriff's Office at 406-758-5610. Sources: I have this interesting annoying problem where a customer would describe a product or say exactly what it is and ask me what is that. For example, that chocolate chip cookie that has M&Ms on top, what is that? BTW, it will also have a sign saying what it is, and I would just look them in the eyes and say exactly what they said, and they get all excited and say they will take that item. I had an interesting discussion with my coworkers about us, and we came to the conclusion that most people don't really want to think, they kinda want you to just tell them what they want or know what they want. They want the info to be easy enough that even a toddler would understand.